Before the pyramids, before the pharaohs we know by name, before Tutankhamun, before Cleopatra, before the Sphinx ever looked out over the sand, there was a king named Aha. And when he died, he did not go into the afterlife alone. 36 people went with him, not as offerings, not as symbols, as living human beings, killed and buried around his tomb in the same hour he was laid to rest. This is the story of the ritual that Egypt does not like to talk about. Welcome to Unheard History. Around 3100 BC, Egypt was not yet the Egypt of postcards and museum halls. It was a newly unified kingdom. Upper and Lower Egypt had just been joined into one nation, under one crown, for the first time in history. And the man who wore that crown was not just a ruler. He was treated as something closer to a living god. His power over his people did not end with his death. It was believed to continue into the next world. And if a king needed servants, guards, and companions in life, Egyptians believed he would need them in death too. At a place called Abydos, in the low desert cliffs above the Nile, archaeologists found where this belief became something else entirely. Something far darker than symbolism. The site is called el-Kab, the mother of pots, named for the broken pottery scattered across its surface for thousands of years. Beneath that pottery lie the tombs of Egypt's earliest kings. And around those royal tombs, archaeologists found something that should not have been there. Rows and rows of smaller graves, dozens of them, then hundreds, all positioned around the king's burial chamber like an honor guard frozen in the sand. At first, early archaeologists in the early 1900s assumed these were simply the graves of loyal court officials who happened to die around the same time as their king. A coincidence of timing, nothing more. But modern excavation changed everything we thought we knew. The subsidiary graves around King Aha's tomb were built as a single continuous structure, not dug separately over time as people happened to die. Built once, roofed once, filled once. Every single grave completed in one uninterrupted construction event, which means every person in every one of those graves died at the same time. Not from illness, not from old age, not from accident. All at once, on the same day, the day their king was buried. If this happened only once, it could be dismissed as an unusual coincidence. But it did not happen once. It happened again and again. Under King Aha, 36 people were sacrificed. Under his successor, a king named Djer, that number exploded. Djer's tomb alone contained the remains of over 300 people. His funerary enclosure nearby held hundreds more. In total, more than 500 human beings were killed to accompany a single Egyptian king into the next world. Among them were young men, young women, believed to be members of the king's royal harem, and dwarves, a group considered sacred and closely tied to Egyptian religious belief. They were not chosen at random. They were chosen because of who they were to the king in life. How exactly were these people killed? The physical evidence is limited, but what has been found is unsettling. Flinders Petrie, one of the first archaeologists to excavate Abydos in the early 1900s, noted something disturbing about several of the skeletons around Djer's enclosure. Their positioning suggested they may have been buried while still alive. Not killed first, then placed in the grave. Buried and left to die in the dark, beneath the sand, beside their king. Other researchers believe strangulation was the more common method, a quicker death, though no less deliberate. Either way, the outcome was the same. Hundreds of people, healthy, in many cases young, brought to Abydos for one purpose: to die on command, on a single appointed day, and disappear into the ground with their ruler. None of them were buried with the wealth we associate with Egyptian royalty. No gold masks, no elaborate jewelry of their own. Some had modest grave goods, enough to suggest status in life. Ivory combs, small tools, fragments of jewelry, but nothing close to what a king or queen would have received. They were not being honored as equals. They were being equipped just enough to continue serving in death exactly as they had in life. A dwarf remained a dwarf in the afterlife. A servant remained a servant. A member of the royal harem remained bound to the king who chose her in this world and, they believed, in the next. This was not random cruelty. It was policy. Early Egypt was a new state, barely unified, still working out what absolute royal power actually looked like in practice. A king who could command hundreds of his own people to die for him and have that command obeyed without apparent resistance was demonstrating something. Not just religious devotion, total, unquestioned control. The scale of the sacrifice was itself a kind of monument, bigger than any single tomb. A visible, undeniable statement of exactly how much power one man held over the lives of everyone around him. And then, almost as quickly as it began, it stopped. The practice peaked under Djer, early in the first dynasty. By the time later kings like Den and Ka'a took the throne, the numbers had dropped sharply, a handful of subsidiary burials, rather than hundreds. By the start of the second dynasty, around 2890 BC, the practice had vanished completely. No more subsidiary graves, no more coordinated mass burials. Historians are still not entirely certain why. Some believe it became too costly in both resources and manpower for a state that needed skilled workers alive, not buried. Others believe Egyptian religious belief itself evolved, moving toward the idea that a king could be served symbolically rather than literally in the afterlife. Whatever the reason, the shift was permanent. In its place, something quieter and far less bloody took root. Small carved figurines, known as shabtis, began appearing in tombs. Wood, clay, then later faience and stone. Each one inscribed with a spell, instructing it to perform labor on behalf of the deceased in the afterlife, so that the person buried would never have to work again. By the New Kingdom, over 1,000 years later, wealthy Egyptians were routinely buried with dozens, sometimes hundreds of these small figures. An entire miniature workforce, carved from stone instead of flesh. The idea that started with 500 real human deaths at Abydos ended as a box of small statues, tucked quietly beside a coffin. It is easy to look at ancient Egypt and see only gold, temples, treasures, pyramids rising out of the desert. But before any of that, the very first kings of Egypt proved their power in a much simpler, much darker way, by deciding who lived and who did not on the day they themselves died. 500 people did not choose to go into that tomb. Their king's death decided it for them. And for centuries, the sand at Abydos kept that secret, until archaeologists finally opened the ground and found exactly what had been buried there. Not myths, not exaggeration. Rows of graves, filled all at once on a single terrible day. Why do you think a civilization capable of such extraordinary art and engineering also practiced something this brutal? And do you think power like that ever really disappears? Or does it just find quieter ways to survive? This is Unheard History.